The city was quiet that morning, a kind of silence only New York knows before it wakes. The first light of dawn fell between skyscrapers, brushing against a mist that hovered above Central Park. The late boathouse, hidden behind willows and the rippling lake, waited in stillness. Inside, a few early staff members arranged white roses along a narrow aisle. The air smelled faintly of lavender and rain, as if the city itself were holding its breath. At 6:17 a.m., a black car stopped near the entrance. From it stepped Rowoon, dressed simply, eyes lowered, this tremor in his hands. He paused for a moment, looking at the reflection of the lake, the same reflection he'd seen 4 years ago when he came here for a photoshoot. He had told a stylist then, half-jokingly, "Ever come back? It'll be for something that matters." A few blocks away, Park Eun-bin sat by the window of a small hotel room near Fifth Avenue, watching the sunrise stain the horizon gold. Her stylist whispered, "It's time." But Eun-bin didn't move. She was lost in the memory of another time, a younger version of herself, wandering through the same city as a student. In her diary, "If I ever fall in love, it happens under the New York sky." No one knew then how literal that wish would become. When Rowoon and Eun-bin met on the set of The King's Affection in 2021, something unspoken passed between them. It wasn't fireworks, it was recognition. Like finding a melody you'd once hummed in another life. They didn't date publicly. Didn't even allow themselves to be seen together outside of scripts and schedules. Yet within that silence, a story grew, private, slow, impossibly tender. They both carried memories of this city. To him, New York was where loneliness had once felt endless. To her, it was where freedom had first tasted real. When they finally confessed their feelings and soul, or under studio lights, it was here, beneath the steel arches of the Brooklyn Bridge. A close friend later shared what happened that night. Rowoon had planned nothing extravagant, no photographers, no champagne. Just the two of them, standing by the East River as the city glittered behind them. He took a deep breath and said, "This city saw me at my loneliest. I wanted to witness my happiest too." Eun-bin didn't answer right away. She only placed her hand on his chest, feeling the rhythm of a heart that had waited too long to speak. It was the first reason they chose New York. Not because it was grand, but because it was honest. It was the only place where their love had no eyes watching. When the news broke weeks later that Rowoon had been spotted at Incheon Airport, fans thought it was another overseas schedule. Wore no disguise, no mask of secrecy, just a quiet smile and a single carry-on bag. Hours later, Park Eun-bin appeared too, dressed in a long beige coat. To the public, it seemed coincidence. To those who knew, it was destiny boarding a plane. Landed at JFK under the cover of night. Driven straight to a small townhouse in Chelsea. No assistants, no press. Only a circle of trusted friends who guarded the truth. Even the florist had been told the event was a family gathering. On the morning of the wedding, only 27 guests entered the late boathouse. The ceremony's theme was Serenity of Blue, a reflection of Eun-bin's favorite shade and Rowoon's stage color. Pale blue ribbons lined the chairs, while gentle violin music filled the space with a sound of stillness. Outside, the lake shimmered beneath soft clouds. Eun-bin appeared. Time seemed to slow. Her gown was created by a Korean designer based in New York. Light as mist and adorned with tiny embroidered peonies, symbols of devotion and lasting love. Her bouquet, lavender and white, matched the early morning fog curling along the water's edge. Rowoon couldn't look away. His eyes were glassy, unsteady, full of awe. The ceremony began without fanfare. No priest, no altar, only a circle of people standing close enough to hear every breath. When it was time to speak their vows, Anne's voice trembled as she said, "We met through a script, but today, we're writing our own." Rowoon took her hands, held faintly, and whispered, "No stage, no cameras. Just us, the way I always wished." Who were there said it was unlike any wedding they had ever seen, not because of luxury or fame, but because of how quiet it was. No one spoke louder than a heartbeat. And through the park became their choir. When they exchanged rings, the morning light broke through the glass wall, scattering across the lake like confetti. For a moment, the whole world outside that room seemed to stop. Augur passing by paused, sensing something sacred in the air but not knowing what. After the kiss, There was no applause, only the soft hum of music and a few tears slipping silently down faces. Park Eun-bin leaned her head on Rowoon's shoulder, whispering something that made him laugh through his tears. As the guests left, one of them, a senior actor who had known them both for years, said quietly, "They didn't come here to hide. They came here to breathe." When the couple finally stepped outside, the city had begun to stir. Cars honked distantly. The first tourists crossed the park, cameras ready, unaware of what had just happened within its heart. Rowoon and Eun-bin walked down the path hand in hand, unnoticed. For the first time, they could. As they reached the bridge overlooking the lake, Eun-bin turned to look back at the boathouse, now bathed in soft gold light. Rowoon followed her gaze and said softly, "For one morning, New York became Seoul." In that instant, it truly did. The rain began to fall on the glass windows of the Chelsea apartment where Rowoon and Park Eun-bin had stayed since the morning after the wedding. Outside, New York's hum had returned, cabs splashing through puddles, the faint echo of jazz from a nearby cafe, yet inside, the air remained still. Eun-bin sat by the window, wrapped in a wool blanket, a cup of tea in her hands. Rowoon stood behind her, quietly buttoning his shirt. Their reflections met in the window, two faces no longer acting, no longer hiding. They hadn't told anyone yet, not officially. They still believed they were two stars leading separate lives in Seoul, bound only by the memory of a drama that once captured millions. A small space. They were simply husband and wife. The decision to marry in New York had been made not out of whim, but necessity. Korea was home, but it had also become a stage that never dimmed its lights. Cameras followed their shadows. Headlines invented their dialogues, and even kindness had begun to sound rehearsed. They both loved their country deeply, but fame had turned that love into something heavy. In Seoul, their story could never belong to them. Eun-bin once said in an interview, long before any of this, "Love is the one thing I want to protect quietly." She had meant it. After extraordinary attorney Woo, weight of public expectation pressed hard. Her gentle smile became a symbol, her solitude a rumor. She tried to keep her world small, scripts, piano practice, the occasional walk at night, but even then, one was always watching. When she and Rowoon started seeing each other privately, she was terrified. What if it ruins everything, she'd asked him once. But only answered, "Then let it ruin the things that never really belonged to us." Courage was what led them here, across the ocean. A guy that did not demand perfection. The day before the wedding, two women met in Koreatown, Manhattan, their mothers. They sat in a small cafe near Bryant Park, sipping barley tea as rain streaked the windows. At first, there was tension, quiet, polite, most brittle. But as they spoke, the stiffness faded. Rowoon's mother said softly, "They have cared too much for their age." Eun-bin's mother nodded, replying, "This city can protect them, let it be here." The two women clasped hands. That simple moment of agreement sealed the blessing that neither of them had been able to give in Seoul, where neighbors whispered and reporters watched. In New York, they were just mothers, watching their children choose love over image. After the wedding, the couple stayed hidden in the Chelsea apartment, venturing out only at night. They walked through the empty streets, shared coffee at small diners, and took photos on disposable cameras they never intended to develop. To the neighbors, they were the quiet Korean couple who always smiled. One evening, they visited the Brooklyn Bridge again. It was raining lightly, the city glimmering like liquid glass. Eun-bin leaned against the railing, letting the wind tangle her hair. Rowoon wrapped his coat around her shoulders. "Do you think we'll regret not having our families, our friends, everyone there?" she asked. He shook his head. "We had the only witnesses we needed, you, me, and the city that let us be real." She smiled, her eyes glistening. "You sound like you're in a movie." He laughed softly. "That's the only way I know how to live, when I'm with you." They stayed there until the rain soaked through their clothes. No fans, no flashes, just a hum of traffic and the pulse of the city below. When word of their marriage eventually reached Korea weeks later, public reaction was disbelief. Articles filled the internet overnight. Why New York? Why so secret? And yet, amid the noise, a quiet admiration grew. People who had followed their journey on screen now saw something purer, two souls refusing to let fame dictate love. In an exclusive interview with a Korean magazine months later, They finally broke their silence. Sitting side by side in a sunlit studio. Rowoon looked calm, his tone gentle. "We didn't run away," he said. "We just wanted to start quietly. We wanted our first step as a married couple to be our own, not a headline." Yoon Bin added, "In Seoul. Belong to everyone. But in New York. The first time. We belong to each other." That line became the headline that day. In New York. They belonged only to each other. Spread like wildfire. Not because of shock. But because of the truth it carried. Shared small details the public had never known, how Rowoon had chosen her ring from a tiny jeweler in Brooklyn. How Yoon Bin had handwritten her vows in Korean and translated them into English. How they had donated the leftover flowers from the wedding to a local hospice. Their love story, once fiction, become something quietly sacred. In the following weeks, they returned to Seoul. Cameras waited, questions swirled. But they no longer flinched. On the day they landed at Incheon Airport, he reached for her hand, and this time, he didn't let go. The flashlights burst, the murmurs rose. Eyes stayed fixed on each other. That moment was not about defiance. It was about peace. Later that evening, Rowoon posted a single photo on his private social media, the view of Central Park from the boathouse window. The lake glowing in morning light. Beneath it, only one line. The world was loud, but that morning, we finally heard ourselves. Fans filled the comments with tears, hearts, and words like beautiful. Finally, free. The industry would keep spinning. The scripts would keep coming. And the stage lights would shine again. But something had shifted. They had taken a piece of New York stillness home with them, a silence that no fame could touch. Months later, during a rare interview in a Seoul cafe, Yoon Bin was asked what that day in Central Park meant to her now. She paused, smiling softly before answering. "It wasn't about where we married. It was about how we began, with truth." And Rowoon, seated beside her, added quietly, "The city gave us a beginning. We'll see our forever." That night, rain once again touched the city of New York. Far across the ocean, soft and familiar. As if remembering them. Somewhere in the reflection of the Brooklyn Bridge, two figures once stood. Promising nothing grand, only peace. And in that promise, they found everything the world had once tried to take away.